Hello and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparo, and I'm very excited for today's episode because we have a creator on it. It's his first time being on the podcast. I'm very excited. His new comic book coming out through Mad Cave Studios is Pretty Hate Machine. Issue 1 is already out as we record this. It was written with Tim Seeley, who's been on the podcast before. Looks like I think at least the first issue was illustrated by Paolo Armatano, colored by Roman Stevens, lettered by Dave Sharp. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this comic because it was gross at times, and more importantly, though, I think it has a very interesting story. And some of the things that were mentioned in the solicit to it, I'm very excited to talk about, especially it seems to have a lot of issues with, or to be a lot about a father and son relationship, some generational trauma, and growing up in the 90s and exactly what that means. And so we're going to have a lot of fun talking about this. But please welcome to the podcast, Ryan Onan. Ryan, welcome. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Jimmy. I appreciate it. Sorry, I'm getting over a
Yeah.
cold just a little bit if I sound vasally.
You don't actually. You sound just fine. Uh yeah, so Pretty Hate Machine issue 1's already out as we're recording this. I got a chance to read issue 1, and we're going to kind of dive into it, but I just kind of wanted to get a little bit more you know, for the knowledge about you for the listeners to kind of figure out where you're coming from. And we're going to get into talking about, writing it with Tim
Mhm.
and how that came about. But so how did you kind of make your way to writing comics? Because I know you've done a lot of different things, both in terms of screenwriting, acting, and with all of those things in your career, how did you make your way to writing comic books?
I mean, I've always loved comics. My entire life since I was a kid. I read comics even before I read novels. I mean, it's kind of like the purest form of like you can just do anything in comics. Like growing up, and I always really loved. I was really into the X-Men stuff. When I was a teenager, I was super into, like, the early Image. I think I have, like, the first 20 of, like, all the beginning Image stuff, anywhere from, like, Gen 13 and Wildcats and, like, Backlash and Spawn and all like, I just, like I think I really love Spawn. Spawn was, like, gross, it's, like, and very violent, and, I think in some ways that McFarlane stuff had, like, a big influence on the stuff I wanted to do, but I just, yeah, I've always loved comics. I love the stuff that's made from comics, like, so many times when I feel, sometimes stuff that's made from a comic is better than stuff that's made from a book. I'm almost always somewhat disappointed by something that's made from the book as the IP. You think, "Oh, the book is so much better," but, like, um, oftentimes comics can be just such, like, a jumping off point, because they're so limited in how much you can write, which I really had to learn throughout this whole thing of like what how much you can keep on a page, how many words you can have. It's the whole process has been fascinating.
Yeah, because I mean, you've written for you've I mean, you've written films, you've written for television,
Mhm.
some listeners might recognize you from some of your acting roles as well. Um, what was the biggest transition that you had to learn from writing like for TV or a script for film to like writing a comic book?
I think, I mean, they're so different. I mean, they all have essentially similar things, but the actual format of like of how you write them, going from like movies that are very elastic. Well, I write novels too, and novels are the most elastic thing. They can be however long you want them, however short you
Sure.
want them. It's like you can say whatever you want, which can be sometimes bad for me because I like to say a lot. Um, and then movies are like the next step down where they're still pretty elastic too, Anywhere from, 90 minutes to you see these crazy long scripts if you've earned that in the industry, I guess, to write a really long script. Um, but then TV, which I really loved TV. I fell in love with TV because I grew up reading, these book series, a fantasy series, and I just loved like long form storytelling in such a way. And comic series is the best of all of that. Nothing does it like comics, where you can, if you love something, you can watch more and more, and you can read more and more of it. Um, but TV, when you write TV, is actually shockingly limited because it can only be this length, especially, I mean, I've written for, cable, basic cable, something like I wrote on the series, called Legion. It's like a Marvel series that know
Oh,
how
yeah.
or
Dan Stevens, right?
Dan Stevens, yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Um,
It's a great series. And speaking, we were talking earlier about Delaware. Delaware's own Aubrey Plaza was in, was
yeah,
in Legion.
Aubrey's Hotel, she's so good, and
Oh,
that part was originally
so
written
good.
for a guy. Like, the whole time we were working on it, that was a guy character. Um,
Really? Oh,
yeah, like, even in the
yeah.
pilot script that Noah originally wrote, that was a guy character and she was just she was
Yeah,
so
she
perfect.
she
Yeah,
crushed it in that part. It was
crushed it.
it was it was amazing.
Yeah, oh, that's so funny that she's from Delaware. I didn't realize that. Um, but, uh But yeah, so it's really, versus right now I'm writing on this show called Tracker, and it's on CBS, and it is very much like you have to hit a certain length of time, to a T because there's commercial breaks, there's all that stuff. It's not like a HBO or um, Netflix. I worked on Wu-Tang and American Saga on Hulu, and we had a little more elasticity, because it was on streaming. But if you're doing
Yeah.
something on network, it's like you have to hit these things, and comics are the ultimate version of that because it's like, and Tim was like an amazing mentor, like, as far as he teaches it as well. He's a professor and teaches in Chicago. Um, but really learning how to, like, because each episode, I mean, Jesus, each issue of, so stupid. Pretty Hate Machine is 20 pages long, right?
Yeah.
20 pages long, and even stuff like learning that the odd pages are where you would have, like, a little cliffhanger because you can turn the page and be surprised
Yep.
by whatever. That whole process of learning that, and then learning it's only 20 pages long, you can only have a certain amount of panels per page to tell your story, um, and you can only have a certain amount of words per panel, and that can feel so limiting when you're not used to you're being able to tell with, like, more, I don't know, meat, like you're able to use more tools, and comics are a little more spare, but then it forces you to be more creative, in how you do it and what's left in the gutter, but also you can do anything in a comic. You're not thinking about cost, you're not thinking about budget. It's so awesome. It's the
Right.
best.
Yeah, you're just, the limit is your other collaborators and, the artist's ability, and,
That's
you've
really true.
Mad
Yeah.
Cave
He's
uses
the
some.
actor, he's the director, he's kinda the cinematographer, your artist is kind of everything.
Right. And, I think that's the best part about, about comics and collaboration, because you can, both writer and artist can work together to kind of like, push each other to make the story as best as it can be. But yeah, not having to worry about, how much hair and makeup would cost for Luther,
Yes,
is, yeah,
100%.
you know,
How much blood are we buying?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so, uh, with being both a writer and and doing the different things you've done, and acting as well, yeah, yeah, you mentioned that you also have written written novels as well, and I haven't had a chance to read Winders yet, but like my favorite genre of storytelling is time travel. So I've
Oh,
added
cool.
winders to my list. I have to get. Plus, I did see that the one character's name was Juniper Trask, which fantastic name.
Thank
Just
you.
like 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10 name. I did a one-page short comic with artist Marcus Jimenez, like a little one-page western, and, my character's her name in it was, Juniper Kane, and I've just been
That's a
obsessed
great
with the
name.
name. Right?
It is.
And I've been
That's an
obs
awesome name. I worked on
I've been
those names
obsessed with
forever,
Juniper,
right? You
so
sit there,
yeah,
you can spend days thinking about it, just
I
a
know.
name.
So I'm gonna add
Jennifer
Winders
Kane.
to my list. I have to read that,
Oh,
you know,
I'd
so,
love yeah, let me know what you think. I'm really
um
proud of it. That's novels, I mean, it took me years. That's like, it
yeah, I'm
took
sure.
so long.
I'm
Learning a
sure.
new medium, learning any of these mediums of writing is so fun, but
Yeah,
also just, like, just transcribing your or ta translating, uh, what your imagination is saying it wants to see versus how you put it on the page. Um, Novels are definitely the purest form because it needs nothing else, right? It's like direct to reader brain. Like when you read it, you are the director and actor and cinematographer.
sure.
Everybody has a different image.
Yeah,
Sorry. But yeah, and then comics, you have the same amount of like freedom, but then you have this like truly connected um relationship with your artist, which is, you know, kind of unparalleled. Like, what other medium do you have one other person that, like, really delivers everything that you're doing?
yeah, yeah.
And the color and letterer,
Yeah,
of
the
course.
colorist, the letterer, but it's very few. It's a limited pool. But I sidetracked myself. I started to ask though, like when you were younger, did you was there one thing you set out to do? Like, did you always want to be a writer and found your way to acting, or did you always want to be an actor and then found your way into writing, or did you not limit yourself and you said, "I'm going to do something creative. Whatever opportunities present themselves, I'm going to attack."
Good question. When I was really young, we moved around so much as a kid, and, like, I felt like I've never fit in anywhere, and I was never good at anything. I was always really small. I was, like, a super small kid. I had this crazy growth spurt in high school, but, like, um I felt, I was really good at writing. It was, like, the one thing I had, like, this teacher that taught me, like, kinda pushed me to write these short stories, and I wasn't gonna pass the 6th grade, and she really helped me, by just giving me extra credit for writing short stories, and it completely changed my life. Like,
Oh
the way
wow.
I thought it was the first time I ever felt like I was good at anything, Mrs. Chick. If like, you're the best. Um, but, uh but yeah, I went from that, and then I actually the first really creative thing that I did was I played music. I was like a singer-songwriter in like an indie rock punk band, and I toured around and like, put out albums. Like, that was like my entire life. That's what I thought I was gonna do for my life. And then I was on tour, and I looked over at this other band, and they were in their like 50s, and I was like, I think it was like mid-20s right at the point. They looked so miserable. And I just thought,
Oh no.
"Oh, shit. I don't I don't think I can do this." Like, because I didn't have that good of a voice. I had kind of a punk rock voice, like, not even, not even like Green Day good punk rock voice. Like, I just knew that I didn't have whatever was could transcend the medium in some way.
Right.
And
And is
so
that what you were? Were you the lead singer of the group?
I was a singer guitarist. Yeah, it was
Okay.
super fun, like, very politically driven, very like, it was just like, it was awesome. One of the best times of my life. It was so fun.
What wait, what was the name of the band?
Oh, there's a bunch of bands. Well, the main one was called Against the Wall. I toured around in that band and put out some
Okay.
albums. But I was in another, three-piece with my brother called Jennifer's Tigers, and I was in this band called Dresden, and then I ended up writing and directing a movie later on, And after I quit being in a band, after that moment, I literally quit, like, on tour. I came back and I was like, "I'm done. I have to, like, change my whole life and do something else." And I went back to school full time,
Wow.
thinking I was gonna be, like, the teacher or something, and then just randomly came across this theater company, and again, just total paradigm shift in my life. I was like, "Oh, okay, this is something, this acting thing." There was great writing in it. There was great, like, just so much creativity. I had this amazing mentor called and his name was Juan Castro, and he ran um, this little, like, theater company at this junior college, like, not a prison, but, he was a total dictator, and you couldn't even audition for stuff. He, like, made everybody you had to earn everything, anything you ever wanted to do, and, it totally changed my life, but I stopped writing, like, as far as the music goes, I stopped being in a band, but I didn't stop writing songs, so years later, after I actually became something, like an actor and was, like, working in the industry, I directed this movie, and I wrote this little nothing, low budget movie, um, about a band, a two-man band, and one guy sings and plays guitar, and the other guy plays, like, reprogrammed, like, 80s children's instruments. But I used all these songs that I had written since then, just with my headphones and my guitar, like, in my bedroom, and it turned and I got signed to a major label off of that movie, like, so then I toured around with a friend of mine that we were, like, named Michael Weston. We were in this band called the Brooklyn Brothers, and we toured around the country in, like, jets and played ch children's toys in front of people.
And the movie was, just so listeners know, the movie was the Brooklyn Brothers, Beat the Best. That was, like,
That is true.
2011, 2012.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah. And folks, even if you don't recognize the name, listeners will probably recognize Michael Weston, another actor, for some amazing performances he did in, like, 6 Feet Under and
Oh, stopped on the
myriad other
street everywhere
shows.
we go for that.
I bet.
Yeah, he's the one that makes Melissa Hall smoke crack,
Yes.
kidnaps him.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
So good. He's an amazing man. He was one of my best friends.
Oh, that's awesome. So so after that movie, then you ended up touring around, again, back into music
I know, which
because
was really
of
crazy.
Oh,
Trying to
yeah,
sing
that
trying
is.
to sing these love songs and stuff like that. They were all kinda little synthy love songs, and the beats were from, like, little Casio keyboard. They were like, "Doot, doot, doots, doot, 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 doots." It was like it was very fun, but it really did once again underline the fact that I did not have that good a voice. Like like, I was like, "This is just for fun." It's a miracle little thing, and we did this tour, and then we were done, and we both went back to our lives, and just kept doing other stuff. I just love the creative process so much, like, whether it's anything that you can do, putting on a play with friends, trying to make a movie for nothing, writing comic books, like, just writing anything, like, making stuff is
Yeah.
the I think is the funnest thing that exists. It's my version of, religion, I think, as close as I get, at least.
I yeah, I agree. Making stuff is the best. I mean, it's there's no, there really is. I'm hard pressed to think of, like, a better feeling.
No,
I
no.
I say that with the caveat that I do have 2 kids, and I really like my kids and
I don't
hanging
have
out with
kids
my
yet.
kids.
I want
But
kids. I'm chasing that feeling. I wanna be where you're at, Jimmy. I like,
it is really cool. I am somebody that, I don't know that it's for everybody. I'm not going around asking my recently married friends, like, You having kids yet?" Like, everyone has to live their own life. But, it was, it's been good for me and my wife. I do like my kids. They are pretty funny. Um,
sorry about the cough, buddy.
oh, it's alright. Well, I'll
Yeah,
try
I
and cut
love
it
like,
out.
kids, oh my god,
Well,
man. It really
yeah.
is, I'm kind of I'm thinking about it all the time. Like, I'm
Really?
yeah, I'm getting older, and and it's interesting. It's like, as far as love goes, this is a story that makes me look kinda stupid, but, like, when I was a little kid, my mom used to, like, be like, "I would die for you. I would walk through fire for you," and I used to feel so guilty as a little kid because I would think, "I don't know if I would if I don't know if I would die." like, if it looks like for you, and, like, and I felt like I'm an awful human being. Oh my god, like, what a horrible person won't die for their mother, but I was like, "I wanna live." And, like, my mom said that, like, a few years ago. It's so horrible, I sound so shitty. I
I
was a little
know,
kid. A little kid,
you were a
okay?
little kid.
I was a little
That
kid, guys.
it's hilarious, actually. So
And I told my mom that, like, a few years ago, I was like my mom said it again, she's like, "I die for you." I was like, "Mom, when I was a kid, used to make me feel so guilty. I feel so horrible. I confessed this thing." And she just started laughing so hard. And I was like, "Why are you laughing at me?" And she was like, "Brian, until you have kids, you don't even know what love is, like, what actual real love is." And I'm like, "I'm in. I wanna feel that." So I'm
I
jealous,
mean,
really.
well, it is pretty cool. I will say that. I do enjoy it. My kids are pretty neat. They're 13 and 8, and,
Aw,
yeah, so, uh, but, creating things and it's particularly in comics, but you can have a collaborative process. I guess if you are writing a novel and it's just you, I mean, you might have an editor, but television and movies, I have to imagine that collaborative process. It is kind of wonderful to create. I did theater in high school and college, and I mean, I loved that the whole experience of just kind of putting on a show of making
that's
something.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So well, let's talk specifically about Pretty Hate Machine. So the first issue's out. This is a story of Thomas recently lost his father, and uh, through the first issue, it runs into like just a terrifying demon, I guess, I don't know if that's explicit in the text of the first issue, but definitely seems like we're in demon territory. And, so I'm just kind so w what was the process, you know, of kind of getting involved with this with Tim and Mad Cave? And then I wanna talk about this story and some of your influences in it because in this the press stuff that they send out when they're like a little bit about the creator, I thought what you wrote about it was amazing. And,
Thanks.
I I'm
I
gonna
don't
let me see
remember,
if I can
but
I yeah, I figured that's why I was gonna pull it up. Maybe somebody but your quote about it is that you said, you wanted to do a dark love letter to the scrappy young man who somehow survived the '90s, a time when a kid could truly get lost when you grew up in violent spurts while no one was watching, where the world felt cruel but honest. And you say you talk a little bit more about it. And then the last sentence or the last 2 sentences I loved. "I couldn't feel more excited or honored to be creating this dark piss and love '90s pop song, with Tim. Such a scary, fun dream." So, like, I mean, even if I knew nothing else about it, I'm like, "Oh, I gotta read whatever the hell this is." And I was not disappointed. So, but you tell me how you kinda got involved with all of this and with Tim and I wanna
well,
let's talk about
I'm
it.
I'm a total fan of Tim's. I mean, he the man's so prolific, but Tim and I actually worked he has a comic series called Dark Red, which I love. It's a vampire story. There's 2 runs in it and then an extra, fun little thing. Highly recommend it to anybody. It's very well written. Um, and um, Blumhouse owned it as a piece of IP. They brought me
Mhm.
into it, and I developed it, and we sold it to Amazon as a series. And so I was developing it, and Tim, and I were this was years, and writing the pilot for it and all that stuff, and Tim and I just ended up being kind of like, quick buddies, like, he's just such a wonderful guy, and just love talking creative process, and I'd always been fascinated by comics. I inhale them, I love them, but I had always been pretty intimidated by the, um how to enter into that world at all because you feel so far behind and everybody's, you know, done so much stuff and it's just like anything. Like, I was talking to somebody last night who was trying wanting to be a writer, and they were like, "A lot of competition, huh?" And I was like, and she's like, "Is it a good time to start?" I was like, "Listen, it's not a good time to start anything that is a dream job for somebody. The competition is gonna be endless, and and it's gonna be so fucking hard and brutal and awful
Yeah.
and amazing if you actually, break through." But I had this little leg up where Tim and I had this relationship, and I was like, "Hey, Tim, when it ended up not moving forward at Amazon, after the pilot was written and everything, they kind of shifted their mandate to massive IP instead of like more grounded stuff that they had when they bought it. And I was like, would you ever be interested in writing a comic together? And he was like, yeah, dude, well, fuck yeah, like, send me some ideas that you have. And so I sent him basically like 3 ideas that I had kind of like been noodling around with, and one of them was this fucked up, kind of um Hamlet meets Edward Scissorhands with a little nightmare ghost, like they're like thrown
Yeah.
in. And he was like, "That's the one." And Pretty Hate Machine was my one of my favorite albums of all time, and I just thought, I can't it was before I even knew exactly what it was gonna be, that was, like, the title of it. Um, and, thus began a mentorship from a guy who couldn't be more generous and was, walking me, who was just stumbling towards this new medium of, trying to do as good a job as I possibly could, but he really took me through every step of the process, and let me just take as big a swings as I could along the way, and came in and made things better, and shifted things and showed me where stuff would be too long or stuff wouldn't quite fit or like any of that stuff. But he was a great shepherd for me through this process, and I
Oh,
he
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the story itself, fantastic opening. Because I love the scene of the 3 kids on the bikes. I love how they talk to each other because it felt like a way that kids I mean, I don't I mean, I'm assuming kids still, like, talk to each other the
Like
same,
in
maybe
real
just
life?
the lingo is just a little different or the slang, but,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it felt like a way that kids definitely talk to each other when I was that age, when I was, 'cause I'm
Oh, yeah.
47 now, so when I was 13, like, it felt very realistic, and it's just a fantastic opening. It just
Oh,
'cause
thank
it
you so
it
much, man.
quickly goes from 3 kids just shooting the shit, picking on each other, like, a little bit, to, like, absolute, like, blood-soaked horror. I mean, in 4 pages. There's there's no easing into it. It's just
Yeah.
like "Oh, holy shit. What the hell?"
Yeah.
Um,
I wanted to
I mean,
I
it's
think some
you
of
know
this comes probably from my, like, movie and TV thing where you really do have to get something very quickly out there to, like, kind of, like, grab somebody, but that was my life in the '90s. Like, that was if you had a bike, you had the whole world at your hands. You had no supervision. You went out there and you did stupid shit, and you got in fights, and you ran from people that you were scared of, and you explored places you definitely shouldn't have, and you had a little world that you had to grow up with these other kids. And it's funny, I grew up in like North County, San Diego. There's a lot of like a big Mormon community there too. So like the two kids that are and my best friend is uh Korean American. So like a June, like who's the best friend of he's like Korean American, and
yeah.
definitely the coolest kid out of all of them, just like Charles.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny, and I thought about it, and I'm like, how how different is, like, how I was raised in terms of how I'm, like, raising my kids, and it made me think about that a lot, especially reading what you wrote about how things, like, were in the '90s, and I mean, I'm 47, so I grew up in the '80s, but I was, by 1990, I was 11 or 12, so similar to the little younger than these kids, so, my early teens and teen years were the '90s, but then I was reminded of the fact that my wife, Sarah, has said to me on many occasions, "We're not judging how we're raising our kids by how you were raised." Because
That's
sometimes I'll
hard
be like,
not to
"Well,
do. I can't
I
imagine
know.
that. How do kids grow up now? How do they make mistakes? It's so hard to make mistakes when everything's public or your parents are always hovering around you. Like, I had so little supervision, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but it did make me who I am, and I feel like I've survived so much and can
Yeah."
face a lot of shit because of
No,
what I've been through.
it's definitely so hard to, like, want to, you know, recognize, like, the dangers of the world and want to protect your kids, but also at the same time realize, like, okay, you have to give them some freedom. You have to allow them to make mistakes. Like, you have to prepare them for the world and not just protect it and shelter them,
Yeah.
from it. It
There's extremes. I mean, my
Oh, well,
my
yeah,
my
there are.
forerunner was telling the story, which I'm sure he would tell, like, but he was like, he's such an early riser, he gets up at, like, 5 AM every day. I'm like, "No way, that's amazing." Like, how like, I'm not that like that. He was like, "When I was a kid, if you weren't out of bed at 5 AM, you were physically removed from your bed." Like like, or like, I think, he was, like, taken into the woods, and he had to find his way home in some way. It was people were like, it was just a different way of of having to be,
Yeah.
uh, grow up quick, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we don't completely grow up quick. Like, you're like there we only grow up I mean, part of us will grow up really fast and the other part of us will probably be stunted because we were scared by how we grew up fast. So it's like you can't completely win. Like, I
Yeah.
think kids now are maybe much more emotionally developed, like, but then they don't have the skin to protect it. I don't know,
I
like,
yeah, I mean, I think about my kids are 13 and 8, and I joke that, my wife does joke that I did everything for our daughter who's 13, and she acts like because she was pregnant, I raised the 13-year-old and she raised the one who's now 8, and she's like, but it is true that, um, like, if my 2 kids, if they were lost in, let's say, New York City, they've only been there once or twice before, they were lost in New York, the 8-year-old is getting them home, not the 13-year-old, I gotta be
really?
honest, like, yeah.
The one that you
The
raised
one that
is
I the one that I raised is not making it out of the city.
And
So, I
do you think that's genetics just came out of the box that way, or is it like you pampered, the person your kid because you had it harder growing up in the '90s? Like,
I think it's a little bit of genetics because the 13-year-old is much more like me, and that's how kinda I was. I was always very book smart, but it took
uh
me a while to develop common sense. And, my wife would say it's because that I did too much for the 13-year-old and now she's not as self-sufficient as the 8-year-old. So, it's a you know, it's it's, uh, it's a
Hey,
hard dance to
hey,
dance sometimes,
you'll see.
but,
Jury's still out. They're only 8 and 13.
yeah, I
We'll
I
see
got
if
some time.
the
I got
building blocks, like,
we'll
how
see.
show me
We'll see
when
how it
they're in their
goes.
30s.
Alright, so we have Pretty Hate Machine, we have the title and the Nine Inch Nails, influence, and right, it's Nine Inch Nails, right?
Yes, yes, it's their
Yeah, okay.
it's
I
the
thought
first
that's the
album
right
that Trent
first
Reznor did,
album.
just, like,
Yeah.
blew my mind, and it was the feeling of that album is, like, dark and sexy and oddly important and yet not important at all, like, it's like a it felt so quintessential '90s for me, um, and Pretty Hate Machine, I think, is a bit of a love story to that feeling of feeling lost and feeling like, what do I do with all this me, at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And And in this
Yeah.
particular instance, kid loses his dad, um, in a tragic, like, car accident and, um, is kind of broken, but needs to move on and needs to be strong for his mom and all this stuff, and then this fucked up creature thing,
Yeah.
like, comes out and says, "Everything you know is wrong, and let's have a little fun figuring, with a little slaughter, figuring
I
out."
mean, yeah, so Luther is that character, which is the, the Edward Scissorhands, Freddy Krueger type with just a, a mouthful of teeth. Um, and but the interesting thing about how Luther is first introduced, because after you get through the open, and then we go to see Thomas, and he's basically at his dad's wake, and we learn about him. Um, we start to get to know him a little bit when the three friends show up, and he's called out to the scene where like we meet Luther. But I found it fascinating, and I really liked how like there's no real um explanation yet in like the first issue. Like there's no like deep dive lore into like Luther hints at like where he's from, and it's absolutely terrifying in terms of him telling Thomas, like what they saw about his father, and like it just like yeah, I can't tell if he's actually trying to give him information or if he's just messing with him at that point. But like Luther just comes on the scene, and it's just like instantly terrifying in terms of like who he is
Right.
and why he's there. Just that kind of feeling of there's no real explanation for it yet, and I don't know if one's coming, but just he's there, he's on the scene, and you don't know what his motives are. The things he's telling Thomas are uh hard for Thomas to accept because that ties into the Hamlet of it all.
Mhm.
Yeah, I found it um so interesting in terms of how he first arrived on the scene, and kind of how the story then, played out, from there with Thomas. It was a very, very fascinating, and I thought terrifying introduction.
Oh, that makes me so happy, man. Yeah, you don't wanna give too much away, and you don't wanna let, like, you're kind of a first issue seems as I've read them and, kind of ingested so much is you want to it's all breadcrumbs at the end of the day. It's like, you know, come on this go on this journey and you will learn stuff about this, lore that I'm attempting um to create or Tim has some really fun ideas throughout the whole thing and that we make this thing together of how much you show at any particular time. How much information do you give people? Like how much do people really want? And there's a difference between just in storytelling. I think there's a real difference between what you want and what you actually want. Because you want to know everything. Like when I'm reading something,
Yeah,
I'm like, I want to know everything. Like I want to
yeah,
know it now. Um, but But as long as I think it's, hopefully satisfying as you get little morsels along the way and do a certain amount of your own work, as a it's like you're a little detective too, and so is Thomas, and he's trying to figure it out, like what the fuck any of
yeah,
this is and what
yeah.
meaning it has. Then you're kind of doing the work with the character, um, versus just here's all the lore, and then you're like, okay, okay, let me figure out what part of that lore I actually care about or
Right.
like.
Right, because it was in storytelling, you're not just relaying like a bunch of facts from point A to, point B. Like you're unraveling this thing in a particular way because you want your audience to feel something, whether or
Mhm.
not they feel like they're the detective with Thomas, or they're getting a sense of like what Thomas is going through, or you want to scare them with how terrifying Luther is, or you want them to question the reality of the situation and what's really going on.
Yeah.
That's the
And
magic
because
of
it's an indie or an original, you come with nothing, right? Like, so it's not like, if you're reading a new, Batman comic, there is a plethora of stuff that you already know given any
it. Yeah.
particular new run. Um,
Sure.
but there's like I've just got done reading the first 2, things of, books of the Absolute Superman, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's so good," because they just like, every character that you know in Superman is doing something completely different. It's almost it's
Yeah.
like they got shuffled in a, like a ensemble theater or something like that. Everybody played different roles. The essential roles are still the, good guy, bad guys are still the same, but part of that because you know the original story of Superman, where it departs from it and where it doesn't. Same thing with the, Absolute Batman, where it departs and and where it reinvents things is part of the fun. And I guess the closest thing I have to a version of that, or that we have for as a close version of that, is Hamlet. Like people know the story of Hamlet. Um, there's a lot of that in there, and a lot of departure also. So like, if I was reading, I would, yeah, it's like, what is the Hamlet thing? What do I think I know versus what I don't know? You know, hopefully that'll be fun for people to.
Oh, yeah. What was the, I guess, inspiration or idea, like, behind, like, Luther? Like, where did Luther come from? Has he haunted you for years?
That's that's a good question. I no, not no, it's not from my dreams or anything. Though I think it was an amalgamation of, I mean, that's all creativity is at the end of the day, right? Like, is like you take like 2 or 3 things that you fucking love that and you smash them
Yeah,
into each other like atoms, hoping that they're gonna create some new molecule
yeah.
in some way. And, without a doubt, he's a combination of, I mean, for sure Freddy Krueger because I just loved those movies growing up. Like I watched them too young for sure. And I was building like Freddy's house out of popsicle sticks and shit like that when I was little. But he was
Huh.
so funny at the same time as he was so terrifying. Um I really loved the bizarre look of, like, Tim Burton stuff, so, like, I mean, I just loved Edward Scissorhands so much, but I thought, some crazy shark teeth would be fun. I don't know, like, Tim and I talked about a lot of stuff, and, like, um the question, and we went through a bunch of different versions of what he might look like with the original artist, like, what's he wearing? I think the first pass, and we've gone through several we went through a few things on the we had a different artist at the beginning, and then that didn't work out, and then we had another artist for the first, issue, and that didn't fully work out, and then we have for the rest of the series, Hank LaMarca is incredible, like, his stuff is, like,
Okay.
unbelievable. Paolo's stuff is amazing too. I mean, in that first issue,
Yeah.
I'm big fan of his artwork, and he's, like, around the same age, has the same influences. If you see him online, he's, like, this Italian, like, drummer in, like, a punk band, like, he's, um but, like, definitely first imagistic stuff looked a little bit like, like, uh, Edward Scissorhands, like, with, like, a leather suit and stuff like that, and I was like, "Oh, that's not quite what," like, I want it to feel more like a little mix of Trent Reznor in there too, because I just thought Trent Reznor was this character that was so interesting and kind of dark and, like, but I also would, like, push. I had this imagistic thing of, my favorite horror movie of all time is, An American Werewolf in London,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Jack in that, who is also super scary, but also his best friend and kind of, like, really funny is just torn the fuck apart because he's survived. I mean, he's a like he comes back to the main character um after he's been killed by this werewolf, and he's got like little pieces of flesh like hanging off of
Yeah.
its face, and like and so a little bit of that went into it, yeah, just kind of all this stuff mixed
Yeah.
together.
I real I really like his jacket. I really like Luther's jacket.
Oh,
And
good.
it's just yeah, I just thought that was like a nice design touch. Like, cause in terms of the character choice, it all, you know, a lot of pockets. It looks like it could be something that was maybe like military issue. It just calls up some interesting questions about Luther. And I do also like that he
Well,
has, when we first meet Luther, I mean, I think maybe it's not his
your
first or
head's in the right
second
place.
line of dialogue. I also thought was he kind of had that Freddy Krueger touch, and he's, I think one of the second things he says to Thomas is, "Need a tissue? Watch the knives. They're annoying." And I just thought that was really good. Um,
Like, do you want
yeah,
to tissue as it's raining blood? Like,
yeah. You know what else I did like? Well, certain line I really thought was very uh very funny actually, and uh it helped us set up the character of Thomas really well. When we first meet Thomas and he's at his father's wake, and some woman comes up to him, and I think most people who have been to a funeral, especially if you've been to a funeral of someone close to you, it can just be the worst having to talk to people. I
mhm.
mean, you're there because someone close to you or someone you know has died. That's already absolutely awful. And if you're somebody who's even like a little bit introverted, then having to make conversation with somebody on top of it, and this woman comes up to him and says, "Oh, I heard you got into the Royal Art College in London. You this must be the time of your life." Like, the next panel just pulls back and you see the coffin with his father's picture on it. He goes, "Well," and I'm like, "Oh, this shit is awesome." Like, it's just all over the place in terms of, like, the emotional beats of it. I thought, "This is great. This is r
Oh,
my
thank you so much.
sensibility 100%."
Oh, man. And Tim has that in spades. He's just like, I think that's where we really connect is, and I will admit in my own stuff sometimes when it's just me, that balance of, like, humor and horror or pathos is really fucking hard to find, like,
Yeah.
because one diminishes the other at the end of the day, and if it's really good, like in American Werewolf in London, um, you know, or something like Lost Boys, like, there's some really funny shit
Yeah,
in there, right? The
absolutely.
Turtle Brothers and all that stuff, like, but it also the emotional stuff hits, and so you're trying to do a version of that where, like, you there's funny stuff, the kids are saying funny stuff, they're just being normal, you know, awkward things in life, and yet, um, you still have to kind of keep the emotional ball in the air. Um,
Sure.
it's a dance, I hope that we, um, achieve it as much as we can along the way, but it's very fun. I mean,
Yeah.
to do both to try and do both things is very fun, and, like, it's fun to make yourself laugh with something, and I'm so psyched that you dig it, man. Like, that's awesome.
Oh, I did. Absolutely. I thought it was a fantastic first issue. Really loved it. And yeah, really just from the opening jump, I I thought I get this and I liked where it went. There's plenty of surprises in the first issue. I'm excited to see where it goes. So yeah.
Cool,
Yeah,
man.
thanks. Thanks so much, Ryan. Thanks so much for coming on the
Oh, I
podcast
had
and
such a
chatting with me
blast.
about it. I really appreciate it. Listeners, please rate and review us. Do all the stuff they tell you to do about podcasts. It really does help. Just leave like a little review. That would be nice. Shout out to my brother Bobby, the Cryptid Creator Corner's #1 most dedicated fan. Bobby listens to all my episodes. Don't worry, Bob. I'll make sure you get a copy of this. I know you're gonna like it. And yeah, Pretty Hate Machine from Man Cave Studios is out now. You can get issue 1. You can get it right from the Man Cave website. I will put links in the show notes so you can get it right from Man Cave. Let your local comic book shop know that you want it, and also have links so you can check out Ryan's website, check out some of the other stuff that he's done, whether or not it's directing or acting or writing. We'll put a link to Winders as well because I'm definitely going to order that as soon as we're done so I can read it because I'm a sucker for anything that even is remotely time travel-y. Um, yeah. And issue 2 of Pretty Hate Machine will be out May 27th. Okay. So, yeah, just get it, read it. You're going to love it, especially if, like Brian and you grew up, mostly on your own in the 90s, getting into trouble and looking back now, wondering how you made it through. So, but thank you very much to my guest today, Ryan Onan. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Good night.